Oh, I'm loving all the beach backgrounds as well. That's a total feel today. I could definitely use the beach.
Deb, I love the movement. It's good.
Perfect. And I'm just going to share my screen and then we will get started in just a second. And so again, for everyone that's just joining now, feel free to drop any questions you may have in the chat. We are super excited to have you here today. Just 1 second. So, feel free to come off of mute. Feel free to drop any questions that you may have in the chat. I do have pre-submitted questions, but, we want to make sure that this time is valuable for you. Now we have that all set. All right. And I'm just going to share my screen and then we can get started. All right. Let me hit present and hit record. Perfect. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited to be joined by Ronit, who is a Senior Director of Engineering at Smartsheet. She's going to talk about coaching and supporting female engineers into leadership. And so I'm so excited to welcome her and have all of you on here. Just a very couple quick housekeeping rules. This is being recorded, so we will send, a follow-up rewatch email where you can revisit this after, so you don't have to worry about taking any notes. And this time is about you, so please feel free to come off of mute and ask a question. Drop your question in the chat. If at any point you don't feel comfortable asking to the entire group, you could always submit it anonymously. And with that, I will pass it over to you, Ronit, and then we will get started.
Okay, so it's great to see you all. My name, as was introduced, is Ronit Borrell. It's a long name, very unique. I'm a Senior Director of Engineering in Smartsheet. I'm actually just celebrating my first year in Smartsheet, and it's been an amazing year. I enjoyed every minute of my time there. I've been a Director of Engineering for quite a while. I've been an engineering manager for many years. And I started in engineering, so I have a BA in computer science. I did my MBA later, and I was watching women and male colleagues as they grow, and I help them grow throughout their career. And this question of what's going on, where do all those women disappear in the way, was something that was in my mind. I joined Smartsheet about a year ago, after spending 4.5 years in Amazon. And prior to that, I was actually living in Israel for the rest of my career. Smartsheet has been quite a delightful place to enter, because Smartsheet have, one of the values that Smartsheet have is about being very supportive. So this level of conversation about how do we help each other is something that we're having on a very regular basis. For those of you who not know, Smartsheet is a collaborative work management platform that aligns people and technology and actually help us be very productive and build our own processes in our own place. So the platform itself is very collaborative and very supportive. And all of that created this really interesting conversation. So I'm hoping today to answer any question and actually have an open conversation about what can we do, whether as managers or leaders or technical leaders, or even how can we help ourselves and our peers to be more successful and help get more women up that management ladder.
Definitely. And thank you for calling that out, because we definitely want this to be an open conversation. And also congratulations on your first year. You're getting some praise for that in the chat. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And, actually on that first note, I would love to talk about Smartsheet. And, we got a question from a Smartsheet employee asking about, the barriers that there are for women to advance in Smartsheet, and how can they advance in the engineering department. So I would love for you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that the question is true for Smartsheet, but it's very also true for many other companies. Smartsheet is still a relatively kind of a homey small place. We are about 400 engineers on and all, more or less, and therefore you have the privilege from one hand to know each other very well and be very familiar with what's happening in other teams. But on the other hand, you have enough space to grow. This is a substantially large enough organization to grow in. The advantage of being in a company like Smartsheet is the fact that you can actually create relations. And one of the things that allow anyone to progress, women, men, and any other, to progress is actually the fact that you have those allies and you have somebody who trusts you, who uh, saw your work and say, wow, there's some sparkle in them. One thing we do in Smartsheet is we, as engineering leaders, we actually share and talk about our different engineers from all the teams together. So my colleagues are aware of my superstar engineers and also ones that need some help, and I'm aware of them. So we constantly are looking for opportunities to help and be able to give that in different places around the organization. So if I was an engineer, just entering Smartsheet, I'm a beginner or intermediate level engineer, and I want to move either as a technical leader, becoming a principal engineer or an engineering manager, there are two things that I would do. First, I would actually see how can I help my team. The second part is I'll see what it is that I can do that can demonstrate my ability to lead, not just provide technical contribution. That's for sure something you need to do in this occupation, right? Otherwise, like, what work have you done, right? But also, what can I do that demonstrate my ability to help other, ability to see, to show how can I project management thing, or how can I help deliver, right? How can I solve problems? How can I rally the team or group of engineers to do so? And the good part about it, it can be in my team, but it can also be things that I really feel passionate about, and they are around Smartsheet. We have this ops meeting every week that engineers from all around the company share their challenges. There are also company level challenges around engineering. So plenty of opportunity to do that. And so if you are a Smartsheeter or you are working in those size of companies, usually that's the type of things you would want to consider.
Perfect, perfect. And I love what you're saying and getting really involved. And so, I was wondering if you could dive into a little bit more about tips, if there's anything in particular outside of that you would say is the most important step. Would it be trying to find mentors in that space or in other spaces? And if that is the case, how important is mentorship in this process of moving into leadership?
So we all have like the ideas of what prevent us, but I want to actually bring you a little bit earlier to some data. There was a really interesting research done by Lenin and McKinsey about where do we actually have this challenge as women to progress. And what they found out is that we all know that the pipeline getting women from college, and that's low numbers and a little bit improving. We also the C-suite, and we saw there are not a lot of women in the C-suite, and that's actually significantly improving because there's a lot of minded about that. But apparently the biggest problem nowadays, and it has been always like that, but it's been more profound, it's the first step. It's your first step in the ladder. So being the manager one level or being the first technical lead role. Those are the places where we have challenge to get there. And the reason for that is actually a combination of things. And I was kind of trying to figure out if we can create some kind of mental model of how to compartmentalize them. So the first one is what we feel, is the way we think about ourselves, is whether we have those self-doubt, can we actually do that, are we technical enough? And in those early stages, this is really important, because if we doubt ourselves as an engineer, we would be less talking in meetings, less providing our opinion, less bold to propose technical solution. And we need to think about the fact that every time we do that, we actually rolling ourselves back. So each time we not participate, or we are not sure about being able to provide our opinion, we actually helping the environment set this mental model about who we are. It doesn't mean that all of us need to be extrovert, none so ever. We can be extrovert, introvert. It's not about that. It's about finding those channels that we can provide our thoughts. If nobody can hear us, it's true that some of our work would talk for itself, but if we're talking about us being promoted to leaders, we need to be heard in some way. So that's the first element, is how do we take and create some self-confidence so we can be there, present. The second one is the environment. It's true, when I started, for many years, I used to find myself the only woman in the room, right? And it was challenging. In one point of time, I was already a manager, I was working in a company, and I was going out, after a year and a half, I was going out for a maternity leave. I came back to a company event, and I saw the person, a man who replaced me in that role, and he was completely chatting with the CEO, and it wasn't a big company, so it was about 300 people, and all the executive over there, things I wasn't able to do, like this male bonding around, let's do some sport activity together and so on, was really hard for me. And he was able to crack this in a month that I was absent, right? So it is a male-dominant environment, and we need to find a way to be communicative enough, create enough relations. Now, it's not only about ourselves, actually, I must say. That's why you get a lot of those conversations. How do we create men allies? How do we take our organization through this voyage of thinking about what kind of language, what kind of environment do we want to create? How do we create those inclusive environment? So not our fault, right? It is our power, if we are already in leadership, to make a difference over there. But we need to be aware that this is a thing that is going around. And we, in some point of time or throughout our career, we'll have opportunity to help that improve. I had a conversation with one of our managers in Smartsheet yesterday about, he was asking me, like, do I have any biases when I think about my female in my team? How should I think about that? So it's like a really good conversation, the fact that we can have this. But it takes time. You need to work and build that. So for us, we need to be aware as women, as we progress, that there is an element of that. For beginner SD1s, I talked to some female that just joined early days, and I was in Amazon at that time. And they said, I just joined and I don't know who to talk to. And for the first 3-4 months, I didn't know who I can learn from, because I didn't feel comfortable, because everybody were men and they were going out to lunch by themselves, not asking me to lunch. So figure out how we can at least find some hooks that allow us to get into this culture, because that's a lot of time, that's the environment around us, till a point of time that we can help change that environment. And then another element is this, what you said about our support system, our mentors and sponsors, and just the good folks that are behind us and say, hey, don't worry, everything will be okay, go back there, right? So there is a question, do we need more mentors or more sponsors, or what should we have? We need to figure out, like, each one of them is good a little bit for a different thing, except of the moral support. So mentors are there to coach us on capabilities we want to learn. We want to learn how to uh, uh, better know how to design, or we want to learn how to um, communicate with our peers, or we want to learn how to manage our time. So mentors are there to help us learn, and that's with their job, and we can change them. Right? We can keep some the same, we can change them according to what we want to learn. Sponsors are there to help us progress our career. Those are folks that are actually putting their reputation on the line for us. So it's not that we can find sponsors in a sense. It's like, it's about how do we shine next to a person we appreciate and next to a person in power, in a sense, so they would appreciate us back and they would see the value that we can give them in their team, in their career paths, and they would want to take us to that voyage with them. I had two amazing sponsors in my career, and they helped me get my first engineering management job and my director role. And without them, I would probably not be talking to you today. So find those sponsors very important. But each one, the mentors and the sponsor have different parts to play. And maybe the last one is about our life. We have a life. We have parents and kids and hobbies and circumstances, and a lot of time when we look at research, women are much more occupied with their personal life, whether it's elder parents, whether it's kids, whatever it is. It's actually, women take much bigger part in their family, and we need to find that way to balance and know when we can kind of move forward, when we need to take a minute of time and make that balance to work through our career jumps. I always give the examples of women that are thinking of having their first kid. A lot of time what they do is a year prior to that, they stop working actually. So they work, but they're not committed in. And what I say to them, because I have three of those, is don't stop till you stop, right? Go in there, work, get yourself out there. Don't think about, there is a change is gonna come. When the change comes, it will come and then it will be different. But till then, do your best. So that's a very long answer for this question.
No, but I think this is such valuable information. I think you talked about a lot of really important things. And I love the last point about not taking yourself out of the running. That was something that I first heard about listening to Sheryl Sandberg, and taking yourself out even before you're kind of in it. And so I really appreciate that advice. And I kind of wanted to follow up on, I think, the second point that you were talking about finding that confidence to speak up and advocate for your work, as important as that is, as finding advocates in your workplace, allies to help you move along, and sponsors. I mean, do you have any suggestions for resources or ways that somebody might be able to build that confidence if they don't find that space in their current employer or position?
So each one of us is unique, and each one of us have how we feel comfortable. Now, if we want to be leaders, we need to be able to present ourselves. We need to ask ourselves first, do we really want to be leaders? Is it something that we find in our passion to do? Right? It's not a mandatory thing. You can do a lot of very productive, impressive accomplishments in your life that have nothing to do with leadership, right? But assuming you do, it means that this bug is inside you, and you have that fight to move forward and be able to present yourself. So make those baby steps, right? Figure out one scenario at a time. So let's say you are in design meetings, right? And in the last 10 design meetings, nobody heard your voice. Be prepared. Take and read the design prior to time. Make those questions that you want to ask. Make those proposals that you want to present. And be ready with them if you need that preparation. You can even find one colleague that you trust, that you already created those relations with, and ask him, hey, I wanna try and kind of pitch for this. Here's why I want to do that. Like, this is the reasoning behind that kind of design suggestion. I love if you would help me to be vocal, right? So that person could even direct a question to you and let you answer. So that's a first baby step forward. And the idea is that each time you do one more thing. I'll give you an example from there was a time in my life that I wanted to actually go into venture capitals and look at how can I be part of the startup arena. And there's a lot of events that you can attend. And I met this really nice salesperson, and he told me, you know, I know that you don't feel comfortable, but in each event that you go, you need to make sure that you at least talk to 3 people and get 3 contacts. That's your challenge. Start with that. So I've done that, and it was actually great. It was really hard to get be feeling comfortable in those places. But it's the same if you want to become a leader. You need to find those really first step that you do that would allow you to present your voice.
Perfect. I love that. And I love that suggestion. And thank you for sharing that story. I just want to, shout out that we have 10 minutes left. And so if anyone wants to ask a question, feel free to come off mute, or I see Renana dropped a question. She said, thank you, Rana. As you mentioned, sometimes it is not us, but the environment around us. Do you have any tips for us on what to look for when looking at our next position at our current employer, or when interviewing with a new company? And thank you for asking that. That was actually my next question. So thank you so much.
So my 2 cents about this, we can ask things through the interview. Usually if you find a consistent question to ask, and you ask that multiple interviews, there is a chance you will get authenticity through that, or you can find a common part. So you can ask, for example, how do you help, as a woman in engineering, how do you help other women to move forward to their next level? Oh, what kind of an activity you're doing, or the organization is doing, to help and promote women in engineering? And put that in more practical levels, so in the day-to-day, not events or hiring and recruiting, but more of like, what kind of processes, mechanism do you have in place? That's one way. I don't know how much you'll get out of this. Maybe again, if you ask this consistently throughout multiple people, you'll get that. But the best way is actually to find folks that work in that organization. And ask them, and kind of get their sense, how happy they are, what went well, how is it for a woman to be in that organization, what have they noticed, and learn from that. It's true for many things. How do you know, or that a company is good for you when you move there? Usually we ask our connections, and we look at some whether it's like some internet information, which is not always reliable. So I usually go to my connections.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for asking your question. And I want to open it up if anyone else has any other questions that they'd like to ask. Following up on that, are there any specific programs that you should look for in an employer, like that they sponsor mentorship, or that they have certain groups at their employer, or not mentioning events, but if there's certain specific things that an employer might mention that would be an indicator that they do support, women moving into leadership roles?
Yeah, I would look at a couple of things. First, I would look at the numbers. So how many women do they have in the more senior level? Because in the end of the day, a lot of time those women are the ones that help drive change down, and that's very, very significant. The other part is that how much commitment does the organization have for diversity? So do they have a diversity leader in their organization? Some company does, depends on the size. Some company have that as part of their HR. Do they have any programs that are dedicated either for just women or inclusive? I actually prefer the one that are more inclusive, that are now open to all, and sponsor learning, kind of early stage management, encouraging engineers and folks to learn how to become leaders and be supported through those learning phases. So that's another good one to look. Another one is to see if you have women at organized in. That means that there are enough passionate women from the company who want to form like a change. That's another one. But all of those are nice to have. It also depends on the size of the company, right? It's like if you take some of those big tech companies, whether it's Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they all have that. And they all have all of this, and some of the small companies not necessarily have all of that. So it's not just about, it depends where you're heading. If you're heading to those big companies, you want to understand how is that women activities are actually happening then, gender diversity in general, how is that taken? You can find flavors in those different companies just by reading and talking to folks over there. And that could tell you whether you like it or not.
Thank you so much for pointing out those important indicators to look out for. And, you know, I think now more than ever, these are very important initiatives. I mean, women have been unequivocally affected by the pandemic, specifically when you're looking at taking on more things. So it's more vital than ever that companies support women moving into leadership positions and, you know, taking on these roles. And of course, with all of the social justice movements happening in the United States right now, also supporting diversity and, you know, making sure that, like you're saying, it's not just for women, but also inclusive, all-encompassing inclusivity for everyone at those companies. And so we have about 4 minutes left, and I really just wanted to open the floor up again if anyone has any questions. And if not, I can refer back to the pre-submitted questions, but I just want to stop for a couple seconds and give people the opportunity.
So, Ronan, I wanted to know what would be your recommendation for any women that's trying to grow within a company and has seen several opportunities pass by because upper management is making the choice to go with the group of boys, and it has nothing to do with experience, it has nothing to do with skill, or the deliverable of all our day-to-day work. It's just, it comes bottom line, that's what it just feels like. And women in the upper levels are becoming scarce, and it's leading me in a position where I don't know how to fight to grow if I'm against almost everybody that's making the decision.
So let me make an assumption, just a good assumption. Let's assume that your company has no real biases or kind of an intentional biases, okay? And they all mean well, right? Most of the companies that I've been working in, the majority of my career, everybody in my size and up were men. So what I would do is, ask yourself if you have one ally, one man ally over there that is sitting in a good enough position to understand how the company thinks and work, or how do leadership in the company work, and ask them, what do I need to do, or what am I doing wrong? It's not wrong, but it's like, wrong is good to ask because then you'll get a more profound answer. And that doesn't allow me to progress. Sometimes we are blind to that, not because it's hard for us to understand like what would click for the others, leaders in place, and try and find that element. talk to your manager and say, hey, you know, I've been doing a lot of different things and I hope you appreciate my work. What does it mean? Let's set up a clear path. I want to become a manager. Can we set up goals together that will take me there? And if you take both of that and continue consistently setting up those goals, but also getting the angle of what should you do better, it will give you the opportunity. However, having said all of that, it's not fair, right? It's not fair. And usually what I want to see is that the leadership, men or women in leadership, whoever gender they are acknowledging the fact that they have those blind spots and that they are consciously thinking about who are the talent, the diverse talent that is growing in the organization and how can we progress that. Maybe, I don't know if you feel comfortable, but if you have one of those sponsors, maybe it's a question you would want to bring forward. If all of that doesn't work, find a new place that is more inclusive. But that's what I would try. Find that sponsor, and that one sponsor, it's sufficient to get you moving forward and understand what would be like the things you need to adjust in your behavior. Yeah, not really fair. I don't like suggesting.
No, but that's a really good point, and I appreciate it. And I think it goes beyond maybe I've been more passive in waiting for feedback, and what I've received is what I'm aware of. I know I'm aware of my maybe lower set of skills, but that's me being very critical of myself, not necessarily a management or anybody upwards from me saying, hey, these are things that we should work on to improve your set of skills and so that you can keep moving forward. And I'm saying that I just need to be the driver of that conversation. Thank you.
We are always drivers of our career. Nobody else will drive our career. So the assumption that somebody would bring us something is, yeah, it can happen, chance, but we own our career from day one, and only we can help that progress by, because we care about that. We are the only one who really care about our careers throughout our life, right? So yeah, good luck with that. I hope. There is a good book about find a sponsor, forget about mentor, find a sponsor, that actually can be good reading for that talk.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And thank you so much for asking that question, Annette. I feel very inspired now leaving this conversation. I love the last point about, we're the drivers of our careers. And so we really have to, take advantage or maybe be more assertive towards what we want and asking for feedback and everything. So thank you. Unfortunately, we're out of time. This is a fantastic conversation. Somebody said, good info. Thank you for the lunchtime boost today. I am so happy that you feel that leaving this. And I also just want to take the time to shout out that Ronit is one of our mentors at PowerToFly. And she's clearly inspiring and fantastic. And Limor said that it's very insightful conversation. So I just want to say thank you. And I invite you all to check out our mentorship page. That's PowerToFly/mentorship. And I will include that in the follow-up email and the rewatch. So thank you so much, everyone. And I hope you have an awesome day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Good meeting you. Bye-bye.